This is Swarfcast. I'm Noah Graff. I am very honored to be with Thadd Mellott, president of Circle M Spring in Warsaw, Indiana. Welcome to the show, Thadd.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it is awesome. I just met Thadd recently. He was interested in some Star Swiss machines we had for sale. And let's just jump in. Tell me the brief description of Circle Spring.
Yep.
I just want a brief overview. Then we're gonna get a little bit into your story, and then we'll dig deeper into all kinds of fun stuff.
All right. So currently, Circle M is a precision machining house. We've basically had three versions of Circle M over the years that we can get into here later on, but currently we service heavily the orthopedic companies in Warsaw and really across the country, and doing anything from reamers to slap handles to actual implants that are used in surgeries. So
implants that would go into what?
Hips and shoulders mainly.
Okay.
We do some screws as well that would be used in ACL reconstructions or, just regular bone breaks. So we also are heavily into the firearms. So we do a lot of components for AR-15s.
We always like to joke about the shoot 'em up, sew 'em up business.
That's exactly what we say too. So we always say, if you're going to shoot 'em, aim for the knee. That way we can,
What do you make as far as the AR-15?
So we don't have an FFL, so we don't make the lower itself. Most people don't realize it, but the only part on that whole rifle that you can't make without an FFL is the lower itself.
What does an FFL stand for?
Federal Firearms License.
Okay.
So you have to have an FFL to make the lower. It's serialized. That's what they consider the rifle. So every other part, the 350 other parts.
What is the lower?
It's the main body part. It's actually only about a 6-inch square of that rifle, and it basically houses all the trigger and all the other assemblies that bolt onto that, basically. So every other part on that firearm, outside of a silencer, if you were to get into that, which we don't, require any manufacturing facility can make that.
Right.
So we make everything else. We make the hand guards, the buffer tubes, all the springs, all the pins, any of the fancy, what everybody calls the furniture that goes on it. We would be able to make and do make all of that.
Is that because both medical parts and gun parts are often really small parts? Is that why?
It could be, for us, opportunity, to be quite honest with you. I mean, we started as a spring company. So when we landed a government contract for some springs for the F4 or M4 and M16, when we started doing those, then the OEM guys started seeing that we could do those. So then they came to us with the springs, and then they said, can you do the pins? And then once we did the pins, they're like, hey, can you do this? And next thing you knew, we were doing most of it. And then the medical portion was just for being in town. When you're in Warsaw, and everybody come, if you're manufacturing anything, you can cut steel, they're going to try to get you to run medical parts in Warsaw. So.
Right. Because that was one of my questions I've been thinking about. A lot of people, they start a company and they go, medical that's the place I want to be.
Right.
You get a lot for your part. And, it's not like automotive where you have to make zillions.
Yeah.
So if, and I've interviewed other people who, maybe they dabbled in medical or they thought they were going to get into medical and it wasn't so easy.
No, it's very, very hard.
It's very, very hard. But if you're in Warsaw, Indiana, is it less hard?
quite possibly just because people.
Give people, actually, before we go any further, give people a little bit of background on Warsaw, Indiana, as far as the industry there.
Yep. So as you drive in any direction, any of the major highways that feed Warsaw, which isn't, it's not a giant metropolis by any means, but it's a decent sized town. And any of the roads leading in, you'll see a sign that says, "Welcome to Warsaw, orthopedic capital of the world." So Zimmer Biomet is in there, DePuy, Johnson & Johnson, Medtronic, just about any large OEM medical company either has at least a footprint, if not its whole manufacturing facility.
Only Americans or foreign ones too?
Oh, foreign ones as well. Mm-hmm.
So it literally is the capital more than anywhere else in, Germany or England or anything.
Yep, absolutely. But the tricky part of it is, just to give you an experience of what we had to go through for our very first orthopedic part. So the instruments, they're not as hard to get into as it's an instrument. It doesn't stay in your body.
It's not an implantable.
The implants are very hard. So for us to get our first implant, it actually was a retaining ring that we still make today that goes and holds your hip or shoulder into place, into the socket. And we had to go through a 1.5 years worth of, once a week, they would send a representative 2 miles down the road to our building that would go over all of our manufacturing processes, standards, how we receive end product, how we do everything, audit it for literally a 1.5 years. It was from noon to 4 o'clock every Tuesday. He would come out. His name was Martin. Great guy, to help us make sure that we were doing everything to their standards. And then we had to go through the ISO 13485 process, which, is pretty rigorous as well. And then once that's done, for at least that particular company, we got on their ASL, approved supplier list.
Okay. That's
the key. So it is, most of these big companies, the Zimmers, the Medtronics, unless you're doing something that's remarkable and different than somebody else can provide, they're really not interested in adding to their ASL at this point. They're saying, I have enough approved suppliers, so you better be different, or you better be crazy cheap or something. Or
how are you different?
Well, we're close, for one. Right? So if they have a problem, as opposed to driving to Chicago, they can drive 15 minutes or 5 minutes down the road, or fly to Vegas or fly to California to see a plant out there. So location was key for us.
So that's about that. That was enough. You do good stuff, and you have, decent prices. And I hate the word. I hate the word fair. That's. I try not to put that in my vocabulary. And you're close. So, okay. Well, that makes sense then. All right. I want to know a little bit how you got into this business. It's a family business, correct?
It is. Yeah. My dad and I started it in 1998.
Okay. So you started it at the same time as your dad.
Correct.
That's interesting.
And
how old were you?
I was probably 21-ish. Yeah. I graduated in 95. And I would be probably 19, 20 years old at the time. And I was in my third year of pre-med.
Pre-med?
Yeah. Dad had worked at a local spring company down the road for 37 years, a company called Midwest Spring. They had like 7 facilities across the country. And he had been there, like I said, 37 years. And they were going through a downsizing. So he was one of the upper people that had been there the longest. So obviously when you're trying to cut some money, you start at the top on. So they asked him if he wanted an early retirement. He took it.
How old was he?
56, probably. And
not that old.
No, not that old. So he took it and came to when I was home on one weekend and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting my own business. I don't have a non-compete. Would you have any interest in doing that with me?" And I said, "Well, what would I do?" And he goes, "Well, you can start with sales. You can help me run springs." I said, "Okay, let's do it." So I had some connections with a couple companies in Warsaw that made projection screens. The company's name was Daylight Screen. I happened to know the owner fairly well. And
how did you know the owner?
It's a large company, and I had worked there through the summers, and I was one of those kids that wasn't afraid to say hi or talk to anybody. So,
all right. So you grew up in Warsaw?
Yeah, well, just outside of Warsaw.
So growing up just outside of Warsaw, it was a thing to have like summer jobs working in shops.
That's correct. Yep.
I see. So the idea, even though you were in med school, the idea of working in machining, manufacturing didn't seem like what the heck. Because I mean, somebody who didn't know you and didn't know Warsaw, and they hear you're in med school, and then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, let's start a machining company. They'd go, right. Whoa, okay. So you'd been around it, and so the idea of it did not seem crazy.
Yep, didn't scare me. So
did you really want to be a doctor?
There was parts of me that really wanted to be a doctor, and there's parts of me still today that would be like, yeah, that would.
Why did you want to be a doctor?
Just to help people.
Yeah.
Plain and simply. I mean, I have a daughter now that's going to school to be a PA or in the medical field anyways. And I mean, she must feel the same way I do. It's just a thing. Just want to help. Honest and full disclosure, I had a brother that passed away of an aneurysm at a young age, and seen the pain and grief that my parents went through. So I didn't want.
What kind of doctor did you want to be?
Well, like I said, my brother died of a brain aneurysm, so I kind of wanted to be a neurosurgeon, but probably wasn't nearly smart enough to do that. So I've been better just being a regular medical doctor.
So, all right. So I know we're deviating from things, but I find this fascinating with purpose and everything. So you wanted to be a doctor to help people. Right. Do you feel like doing what you do in a less direct way, you're doing things to help people?
Yes, I do. And
does that fill a hole in this piece of you that wanted to help?
It does. And it's about to really take hold going forward.
We're going to talk about that.
So that's the part that really excites me, is that, everything happens for a reason. So, I'm just getting to the next step of where the good Lord's leading me. So
how old are you?
I am 47.
You're 47. I turn 44 next week. I feel like I'm just getting started. You probably feel that way too, right?
Yeah, right. Absolutely. I got a long ways to go.
So it's just, you were in your third year of
pre-med.
Okay. So you weren't in medical school yet.
Yeah, no. I would have had to have, applied and got accepted, and there was a long road ahead of there too. So
how much hesitation was there about leaving school? And
really, there wasn't a ton. I think it was just when he asked, it was a fit. I don't know why. It just
seemed like right.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. So we touched on it. Just touch on it a little more of firearms business versus medical business. It sounds like you're saying they almost work hand in hand. Are there a lot of people who do firearms in Warsaw?
No, we're the only one.
You're the only one. That shocks me a little bit.
As far as I know, we might be the only one doing both. I don't know.
Because I know a lot of companies that do both. It's very it's not strange as far as we're concerned.
common as it seems.
You thought that was a sort of unique thing?
I felt like it. Yeah, I haven't ran across any other business owners that I know of that are doing both. Nobody in Warsaw does anything else other than medical. I mean, they might dabble into some aerospace, but it's like you're doing medical if you're in Warsaw.
Oh, okay. Because I went to your website and I was a little surprised. But then I was just like, oh, all right. Yeah. They're just like a lot of customers we have.
Right.
All right. So you have been, how long has the company been around? Since 1998?
Yep. So what, 26 years now?
26 right? years. And you guys are, you're about to merge with
Correct.
some other companies. So I want to know all about that. How did that come to be? Were you guys seeking that out? Did somebody else find you? And
I didn't really seek it out. I have corresponded with one of the guys.
Can you tell me, let's tell me as much as you possibly can. It seems like you can tell some interesting things and you can't tell everything yet.
That's correct. So I can tell you that Rebellion Medical Solutions.
What's the time frame? How long ago did this whole thing start?
About 6 months ago, and we are nearing the very, very end. I thought all the paperwork was actually going to be done today.
6 months ago, somebody contacted you? That's it?
Correct.
Okay. So give me the play-by-play.
So Brandon Miller was the contact, and he owns Rebellion Medical Solution, him and another guy. His name's Troy. And Brandon was a very high executive at Biomet.
Okay.
I don't know if you know who Biomet is, but at the time they were the second largest orthopedic company in the country until Zimmer bought them across town in Warsaw and made Zimmer Biomet. So when it was two totally different cultures. So Biomet was wear shorts to work, wear a Hawaiian shirt, come do your job. The owner, if he was flying to California, he would walk through the plant and say, "Hey, Jim, I'm going to California, for 24 hours. You got your bags packed. I'll take you over there. You can hang out when I go to a meeting." That was the Biomet culture. The Zimmer culture was everybody wears a suit and tie, very executive, very, hierarchy order. When the merger happened, the Biomet people, most of them were pretty unhappy because they didn't want to go to the suit and tie, everything's, all your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted. So Brandon was one of those guys.
Did a lot of people leave?
A bunch. Yep. A bunch of them took an offer to resign or retire or just quit.
Interesting. So they weren't even that. Was Zimmer not even that concerned with getting the employees? They were just more like, we just want the business.
They had their own, so they didn't need all of them.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So this guy was at Biomet.
He was at Biomet. He was a high-ranking executive there. Started his own company to do just design. So in the medical world, there's not per se patents. There is, but there's not. What they normally call them are 510Ks. And Brandon had experience developing and growing the sports medicine department or branch at Biomet. So he had a team of designers, team of sales, basically grew to this, $200 million branch that they ended up selling off. But anyways, when he resigned, so he decided that him and Troy were going to design sports med, hips, whatever it was for DePuy or for Arthrex or for all of these other companies out there. So he was doing the design part of it, and he was like, man.
So what exactly would these things go into? Paint me a specific picture.
So they might come and say, hey, I need a total joint for, your big toe. And he would design that total joint, or what they do a lot of is he does sutures. So if you have a suture for an Achilles tear or a suture or a ACL or any of that. So he designs all of those tools, fixtures, sutures. So he was like, I'm designing all this product. What I would really like to do is have some manufacturing. I would like to have my own manufacturing. Basically,
stop outsourcing and start vertically integrating.
Exactly. So him and I had talked about that for several months, and then we ran into, he had a friend, so he would, when he was
How did he know you? How did he meet you?
Actually, I went to school with him. Believe it or not, I went to high school with him. He was on my golf team when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that connection with him.
So he just called you up. He's like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about getting into manufacturing.
Yeah. Actually, what happened was we met on the golf course. So I coach golf, and his son is a great golfer. And so I would have practice at the golf course where his son was at. He was always giving his son lessons, and we would talk, and one thing led to another. Well, so now we're talking about the manufacturing piece added onto his design, and he knows how to submit to the companies that run the 510Ks and all the testing, and then get all that approval back. Well, then when he was at Biomet, he would go around to all of these facilities. So the Lakers, the Bulls, the Alabama football team. He hung out with all of these people to help them understand, what kind of sports injuries they were having and what they could do and he would talk to their surgeons, set in on some surgeries with the players or whoever to see, okay, like if we redesigned this tool to do this, it would help you. That type
Was
of deal.
he a kinesiologist as well? Oh.
No.
Just smart.
Just very smart. Yeah. Wicked smart. So over the years, he met a lot of people. Well, one of the people that we're merging with was a former NFL player and blew his knee out. And he actually, I believe, had some Biomet parts and ended up working for Biomet afterwards.
Can you tell me who it is or no?
Probably not.
Okay, that's fine.
I wish I could.
Was he? How famous was he?
He was not very. He was a defensive lineman, so he's not extreme. Started with the Washington Redskins, ended up moving to Denver Broncos. Played on Tim Tebow's Broncos teams. Got to hang out with. He was a part of with Von Miller and a few of those guys. So he's fairly recent, but he's wicked smart too. So
yeah.
He ended up after he did that, he went back to school to become a surgical nurse, just because he wanted to go in and sit in on these surgeries and see what he could do to improve these surgeries, right?
Yeah, wow.
So him and Brandon then got together and they formed his business. So he is now OEM medical company. He can sell to the hospitals.
Okay, so they are sort of already joined up.
Correct. Yep. So they needed this manufacturing piece, right? Because they don't want to keep outsourcing product. So that's where I fell in. And
so you're merging with two companies who have already sort of become one company.
Correct.
Very interesting. Okay.
Yep.
So tell me how that works. I mean, we've been involved now a little bit in the M&A space, both just selling machines with work on them, and then also just, bringing over management and having them take over, et cetera. But we've never been involved in a merger. So, I mean, you've told me a little bit of background about the ingredients, but what's the process like?
It's been kind of exhausting, to be quite honest with you. It's been a lot of meetings together, a lot of meetings with our attorney, just trying to get all the paperwork correct that his attorneys like and my attorney likes.
Are attorneys just annoying as hell in this whole process?
They're not necessarily annoying, but it takes longer with them involved, obviously.
Yeah.
But as far as the process itself, it's basically just getting in a room, deciding what everybody's going to do. Is this going to happen? What's the benefits for me? What's the benefits for you? What's the benefits for Brandon? and then if we all like what we hear, then getting it down on a piece of paper that everybody can agree on so we can sign it and move down the road.
Mm-hmm. So you have to decide things like
corporate structure.
Yeah, how the profits are shared, how much ownership one person gets.
That's correct.
And I guess also you just have to agree on who's in charge and business strategy.
Yep.
So what are the hardest things to come up with?
Actually, it hasn't been terribly hard.
Okay.
It's been actually fun. It's exciting.
But I mean, for instance, all of you guys are right now, you guys are all the boss.
Right.
So does one person then assume that role and the others not, or how does that work?
We've got, a guy that's coming on board that's going to be ahead of our sales. We've got, a guy that's coming on to be the president, the CEO, and then the other guys in engineering. So it wasn't terribly hard.
And then what are you?
Well, I'm going to be the president. I'm going to be the president of the company. Same role that I have at Circle M.
So you're the president of the whole thing combined now.
That's right.
And then the other two, they have ownership, but they have different roles.
Correct. Yep. So Brandon's going to act as basically our CFO, and he's going to do some of the CEO roles as well, just kind of the overseeing.
Brandon was the designer?
Yep. The guy that was at Biomet. So he, like I said, he ran a $250 million company. So I trust him running mine. And then I'm going to have the day-to-day operations with all the manufacturing, be the president of that.
And then the other one?
And Jeremy he's going to be, still doing his role of getting our product to the hospitals.
I see. And how do you, and of course you can tell me whatever you want to tell me and whatever, yep. How do you divide the ownership?
Currently, I'm going to be 51%, and then the rest of it's all split amongst themselves evenly.
Okay. And how does that work? Is it because you're bringing in more capital resources and that's how it worked?
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, I have all the manufacturing capabilities because none of them own any land, a building, a machine, anything. So I bring all the manufacturing. They bring the design work and
people, brains.
Correct.
Very cool.
One thing about our new structure, and one thing that we haven't completely done yet is what we're going to change our name to. It's probably Circle M Precision Machining, because we don't want this. One thing we had to over the years is get past is when new customers bring in machining work, they're like, "Well, you're a spring company." Well, we were a spring company. we don't do many springs now.
Right. So this is a good opportunity for you to change it up.
Correct. So one thing we will have is we will be the only orthopedic company, minority-owned orthopedic company in the United States.
Because of the third partner, the football player.
Correct.
Not the stereotype.
So that gets us the ability to check a box, to get into government contracts, to get into the hospitals that every other orthopedic company cannot check.
Interesting. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that. You mentioned that when we were preparing about how you're going to be able to sell directly to hospitals. Flesh that out for me.
Yeah. So
detail, like tell me the parts you're making and the product it's going into, and then how you sell it to them. Like, give me I want to know the full process.
So there's going to be a parent company that owns his company, my company, and Rebellion. That parent company will be the company that sells the product to the OEM. That way I can still manufacture product for Zimmer Biomet and not have a competition issue, right? Because these other OEMs in town, if I'm an OEM, they won't want to place their orders with me. So it's going to be a separate deal. The parent company is the one that's going to sell directly to the hospitals.
And you're the president of the parent company?
Correct.
Okay.
He designs it. We've got our first 510K now, or he does. It's for a suture.
Tell me what does 510K mean again?
It's like a patent.
Okay.
So it's his design. He designed it. It's passed all the tests.
And this is for what part?
That's for a suture.
A suture.
Yep. So
tell me, when I'm thinking suture, I'm just thinking something that you would use to sew something up.
It's basically like that, yeah. So it plugs in, it'll screw into bone or whatever it is on one side. It'll cinch together, and then you got to have another end that goes into something, whether it be tissue, whether it be bone that hooks it together.
So it's made with what, titanium?
This particular one's made out of a plastic.
Okay, and what machine are you using to make it?
It will be a Swiss. Hence the phone call to you.
Star?
A Star Swiss.
Yeah,
yep.
I mean, I don't care. I think people find it very interesting, the specific one. An SB, an SV, an SR?
That is an SB, and we'll probably make it on we'll probably make it on our SR20R4.
Mm-hmm. More access, a little fancier.
Correct.
Yeah, I would think. I mean, no offense against the SB, but that's like the Toyota Corolla versus the Lexus, right?
It is, but we love those SB machines too, because you can thread whirl on them as well. So we run a boatload of veterinarian screws for horses, dogs, cats, and we run, tens of thousands of screws on those things.
That is interesting.
Oh yeah.
So
it's a giant market. You wouldn't even believe it.
So what's is there a different standard when you're making sutures for animals? Or I'm sure the animal owners would, it's family members for them. I'm sure they would want there to be the exact same standard, but is there?
Yeah, it's not. So,
oh, that's sad.
We manufacture them the same way, believe me, but they don't require 13485 certifications. They don't require a lot of the same auditing that we would have to do for something that was going into your body.
But it's just as high quality because it's made on the same machines, etc.
Absolutely. As far as the quality goes, it's quite honestly, Brandon was, he was a part of the design team on a lot of those, 20 years ago at Biomet. And most of the screws now are cannulated, which means, they have a hole down the center of them, made out of titanium. And these screws for the veterinarian group is made out of stainless steel. So he was walking around looking at some of my parts, and he was like, man, this is the exact same screw that I used to sell at Biomet 20 years ago that went into your body, and now it's going into a horse. It's the same screw. Is
that, I'm assuming putting the stuff into pets is kind of a newer thing in the last decade or two?
Yeah, I would assume so. I don't know how long they've been doing it. We've only been doing it for this company for about a year, but I assume there was someone that's been doing it longer than that. But it's a large market. I'm telling you, like tens and tens and tens of thousands of screws.
I think it would be cool to interview a company that just specialized in that. Maybe.
Well, I can give you that company's name.
That would be so cool. All right. We're going down all kinds of fascinating rabbit holes here. Okay. So back to the whole process. So you're making the screws. He's designing the sutures. And then you have this minority-owned business that's under the parent company, and you're selling it directly to the hospital.
Correct. And this is where it gets exciting for me, is because basically the sky's the limit at this point. So once we get all of this done, you want to talk about how I feel about, wanting to help people. Yeah. So, if there's a need out there, whether it be in, not just sports medicine, but, let's say, cardiology or, even sleep apnea or any of that stuff, we can design product, manufacture product, and with Jeremy's help, we can.
So what's the alternative to just sell to like Biomet or to Zimmer or whatever, and then the hospitals buy from Zimmer?
Correct. Right now, I'm a tier 1. I'm a tier 1 to everybody.
Fascinating.
Do some tier 2 work, quite honestly. Sometimes the tier 1s will be so overflooded with work that they have to come ask me if I can supplement some help. So we do that. So that makes us.
But does a hospital feel more secure with a small upstart or a Zimmer?
I couldn't tell you. I've never been on their end.
Or they just they see your ISO and
Right. Yeah, you have to be FDA certified. You have to be
So they figure because you're certified in all these things that you're just as good.
Correct.
And then there's less BS and red tape, and maybe you can do better. Can you give better prices than the big guys?
Definitely give better prices, and
because I would, it could go the other way around, right? They have the economy of scale, and maybe they could.
Yeah, that's not the way it works in the medical industry. Once you become the big 50-pound gorilla, you can charge what you want. But
fascinating.
But we can actually prototype, do customs. So here's a fun little fact for you. Like if you were a surgeon and you said, I love this instrument. I just wish it had a different bend here, and I wish the handle was yellow instead of green. Zimmer Biomet will probably do that for you, and it'll be expensive, but the lead time on it might be, 16
weeks. Right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, or longer.
I was about to say like a year. Yeah.
But if they came to us and said, we want it a little different angle and we want it yellow, we might have it to you in 4 weeks.
Interesting. So there's more, even though they have like so many more resources and theoretically could put it together so fast, they have so much bureaucracy and it's got to go through so many different things that so if you can just get a really good relationship with doctors or with the hospital or what?
Both. The surgeons are the key, right?
So the surgeons will go, I'm gonna go to Circle. These are my guys. Like I don't have to go to I don't have to go to Zimmer. Like I have the direct hookup and can talk to the people who are making my stuff. Is that basically like the huge advantage you have?
Absolutely.
That's way cool.
Speed. Yep, speed is.
Are there any? But I mean, so I'm assuming there are a few other people who have things like you.
Well, there's other OEMs out there, but
like small OEMs,
Oh yeah.
So are you going to do a lot of advertising?
We will, yeah, we will for sure. And part of the reason why I can't really tell you who this other company is because he's currently negotiating with the city of Warsaw to try to figure out if he's going to relocate his business, which is currently in Kentucky.
Why does he need to relocate his business?
Doesn't need to, but it's the orthopedic capital of the world. So everyone wants, if you're a medical company, you want to have a Warsaw presence because everybody knows where Warsaw is if you're in the medical industry.
I see. So even though, you guys are the hookup, it's nice for him to say, oh, we have a Warsaw office.
Absolutely. And that's the reason why I'm getting the opportunity to do this is because my building is on US 30 road frontage right across from Medtronic and about a mile down the road from Zimmer Biomet.
And you're going to be tier 2 as well. So you're going to supply a Zimmer or somebody like that?
Yeah. We're currently tier 1 with Zimmer and Medtronic and all the other Stryker, all the other OEMs out there.
Okay. What do you see as a bigger, more important part of the business? The new and exciting going direct to hospitals, or is your bread and butter still supplying to the big guys?
Eventually, it's probably it's going to be a step process. So currently, it's still going to be, supplying to the OEMs, but 5 years down the road, that hopefully will be a far different conversation.
Do they resent you because you're small and you can kind of, Is it sort of cause a conflict of interest, or you don't really know?
I don't really know, and that's why we have that parent group out there, is to keep away from that conflict of interest. What generally happens, there's startups all the time. So you develop, most of the time those startups develop product, go from a $5 million company to a $25 million company, and maybe to a $30 to $50 million company. And then at that point, one of the big guys, whether it be Zimmer or Medtronic or Stryker or somebody, they feel like they need that in their life too, so they go buy you. Is what generally happens.
Okay, so that could happen.
Could happen.
So the parent company is the one that would deal with the Zimmer, and then Circle Spring would be the one that, or Circle Precision would be the one that deals with the hospitals, and that's how you navigate it?
Be just the opposite. The parent company would be the one that does all the hospital dealings, and then Circle M would still manufacture for firearms components, still do small amounts of springs, any kind of precision machining, and also all the tier 1 orthopedic work.
Fantastic. I know you got to go, so we're just going to wind it up with a couple other questions. Do you have any advice for people in the medical business wanting to get into it, or people in wanting to do a merger?
Be patient. So with the mergers, it's not going to be as quick as everybody tells you it is going to be. I had a lot of people that I had talked with through this process, and they're like, "Oh, it's we should be able to do this pretty quickly."
Well, it sounds like you have people that you already felt comfortable with.
Correct.
That's huge.
As far as the medical portion of it, I mean, you quite honestly, you just have to be at the right place at the right time. I mean, starting a business is scary anyways, and it's going to take a lot of your time, and there's going to be probably more bad days than there is good. I see, little memes and stuff on the internet where, you see the little stick guy and he's going up and down and these big peaks and valleys. And that's kind of the way it is to be a business owner. One day you feel like you're on top of the world, and the next day, you lose a customer.
Yeah.
But along with that comes freedoms. But my biggest advice is just be patient, trust yourself, and stay true to your goals and stay focused.
Yeah, focus. Do you think, if you were going to start another business, manufacturing is obviously the thing Would you recommend it to people? This is a good business to go into?
It is. It really is. Like, again, though, it comes with its ups and downs. I mean, there's phone call. I mean, we run 3 shifts, or modified 2 shifts. So, I don't get as many phone calls now because I have guys that are getting the phone calls for me.
Yeah.
But it's still.
But you talk to the important people like me.
Yeah, exactly. But
peddling machines.
Right. There's still nights where, I know everything that's going on out there for the most part, what's due, what needs to be produced. So there's nights I'll be laying in bed, at 11 o'clock going, man, I hope they're getting this part done, or I need this to be done tomorrow morning when I get in there, or I have, it comes with anything you do, I guess. So,
but could you replace yourself if you wanted?
This is one thing about life in general. Everybody's replaceable. I mean, if I fall down and die tomorrow, they'll figure out a way to replace me. I feel like I do a good job, but...
Well, no, that's not true. A great deal of businesses, if you something was to happen to you, there would be no business. So are you saying that
I think somebody could step in. Yes, somebody could step in. I mean, again, I feel like I do a good job. I have a lot of good relationships with people, but I've got some really good guys there too that have good relationships as well, and I trust my guys. Somebody would be able to pick it up, whether it be wife or my dad or my actual sales people or my plant manager or whoever it is, they would be able to figure it out. It might take a bit, but it would be able to
that
figure
means
it out.
you have a really, a real business, and you have a sellable business. So, I mean, that says a lot. And I really appreciate that. I mean,
didn't happen in a day. back in the day, if Dad or I goes down, it goes down. We go down with the ship, but I think the ship's sturdy enough now it should be able to survive without me if something were to happen. It better be able to.
Fantastic. What do you have? I'm a big believer in gratitude. It keeps me going. And what are you most grateful for? What first comes to mind?
Man, a lot of things. My family.
Yeah.
First and foremost, they put up with me coming home at night, grumpy or late, or when we were first starting this thing, man, I was a manager at UPS too, so because I didn't have enough income just from that, so I would be getting up at 4 or 3 a.m. in the morning and going in and doing that while I was growing this thing. So all of their support's been great. The bank, we use a local bank, and I tell you what, my relationship with them has been God's blessing over, because as you grow, it takes money. So if you don't have the availability and you don't have the relationship with your bank to support you along that growth, you can get hurt really quickly. Along the way, we've had some huge pitfalls where the bank had to, step in and really help. The firearms industry is kind of fickle, and we had a very large, I'll tell you, it was Remington. We had a lot of eggs in that Remington basket, and they filed bankruptcy, and they hurt us.
Do you still want to stay in that game?
I do. Yeah, I do. It's fun. It's something different.
Mm-hmm.
You do the same thing every day. It gets old and monotonous. So yeah, absolutely. There's always new designs and new things we can do in that market.
Do you have anything else to say to the people of the world? This was so fascinating, and I really appreciate it.
No, I think you covered it all. I mean, I appreciate your time. I appreciate the interview. And
oh yeah, we're going to get it out there. This will hopefully be, hopefully good for your business.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate it. And thank you so much.